I had a friend back in ninth and 10th grade whose brain turned to mush over this girl who broke up with him. He started doing weird stuff like stealing his dad's company car and driving to her house and sitting outside her house at like 4 a.m. This was when they were still dating. He'd leave flowers that he ripped out of various people's yards in plastic soda bottles on her porch. She dumped him, and I got pretty tired of him relating every single thing in the world back to her in conversation. Hey, these chicken nuggets are hard as shit today. Fuck school food. What do you think Jen is thinking about right now? So I stopped being friends with him and actually became friends with his ex-girlfriend and her other friend. I guess we bonded over his insaneness. That's when the crazy started. He'd started stealing his dad's car to drive to my house. And throw pebbles and shit from my yard at my window in the middle of the night to try and get my attention. Pipe down, Serrano. It's 4 in the damn morning. Then he'd enter my house from our laundry room door, which had a broken lock for the past 20 years, and come into my room and start talking about her and asking me what she's up to. He got kicked out of school and went to a psychiatric ward after watching the Batman movie with the Scarecrow. Because I guess Jen breaking up with him made him snap. He told various people he was going to do what the Scarecrow had done and make Jen love him again. Someone told the administration, and they opened his locker and found bleach, fertilizer, and a burlap sack with eye holes cut out. Now, I'm no chemist, but I don't think bleach and fertilizer was going to turn his ex into some zombie love slave. Yes, I'm a woman, and I had a male best friend in high school and college. This is not the creepy part. We lived together in and after college, but were never romantically involved at all. Very much a sibling kind of relationship. We'll call him Doug. One day, a year or two out of college, we were out at a bar with some friends, and we ran into a girl I knew slightly. Call her Meredith. She had been roommates with a friend of mine freshman year, and we had stayed in casual contact online. We had a ton of fun hanging out that night, and after that we started inviting her out with us more often. She lived nearby, and suddenly she was hanging out at our apartment a couple nights a week, showing up with baked goods all the time, generally being a great friend. We went on road trips, we binge-watched TV, we texted all day long. I would probably have described her after a couple of months of this as my closest female friend. Doug was still my best friend after so many years, but Meredith and I were probably spending more time together than Doug and I were at that point. Since I did a lot of stuff with Doug, too, though, we all hung out together, and they started to get closer, too. After a while, it became clear that she had a crush on Doug, but he had started dating another girl at about the same time. He felt bad because it was clear Meredith was a little hung up on him, so he tried not to bring his new girlfriend around her or talk about her much. But he did send me and another friend who lived out of state and didn't know Meredith emails that mentioned details of the relationship with the new girl and how he was falling for her. One day he calls me, furious, because someone has anonymously forwarded the contents of some of those emails to Meredith, and she's crushed and humiliated to realize he's infatuated with this other girl. And since the only other person who received the emails didn't know her, it had to be me. I hadn't done it. Despite the screen name, anonymity in real-life communication is not my style, and I would never want to hurt Meredith like that. I was pretty crushed he didn't trust me enough to know that I wouldn't do that. But oh well. Later, Meredith tells me she ran into them at a coffee shop on a date and is extremely distraught, which was weird. But people get odd when their feelings are hurt, right? Months pass and he breaks up with the other girl. Eventually, he does start dating Meredith. After all, she's always around and she's clearly way into him. And at first things seem go, but she gradually becomes more and more controlling. Eventually, she insists he move in with her, and from that point, she stops letting him hang out with me or anyone else. One night, she was out of town, and he, excited about a chance to see his friends, decided to come out with me and some other people, and she called him 40 times in 1 hour, and when he finally told her he really couldn't talk anymore right now and silenced his phone, she called me, and started out talking in a baby voice that, when I said I had to go, dropped a full octave into a possessed-sounding growl. At that point, I decided I was 100% done with dealing with her brand of crazy, and soon after that I stopped hearing from him altogether too, which really hurt after so many years of close friendship, but people grow apart. That's life. Nearly a year later, he shows up on my porch, with an apology detailing what had happened in the interim. Meredith had gradually grown more controlling and paranoid, convinced that he was talking behind her back and lying to her at every turn. She grew afraid to leave the house and didn't want him to leave either, and would attack him in rages or threaten to hurt herself to keep him from leaving. One day, they had a particularly blowout argument, and she got very drunk and confessed that she knew everything he did. It turns out she had logged in his computer when she crashed at our apartment the very first night we all hung out at the bar, years ago, and set his school email account so that it would notify her email account if he changed his password. From that point on, she had gradually gotten access to his credit card and bank accounts, his social media accounts, his cell phone account. She would literally follow him around town even before they were dating via pending charges before they were even dating. And of course, the anonymous email she had supposedly received had been an excuse to confront him about something she had read directly from his email account. She also told him she knew I was trying to keep her from him and that she had always known it and had to keep me close to be sure. This girl groomed me for 7 to 8 months, pretending to be my friend while secretly viewing me as some kind of archenemy the whole time, just to get closer to Doug. She set out very specifically to violate Doug's privacy from the first night she met him in order to trap him in her house forever. He actually had to spend several weeks moving from friend's house to friend's house after leaving her, because when he moved into a new apartment, he caught her hiding outside his bedroom window, and even then she would show up at each friend's house looking for him. And at one point he came out of a training class she knew he'd be attending to find her sitting in the passenger seat of his car. She'd had a spare key made secretly. I saw her car do slow drive-bys on my cul-de-sac multiple times. She slashed her own tires in the parking lot of an apartment where he was staying so she could tell him she needed help changing the tire. It was straight up something out of a horror movie. Eventually, she got so paranoid her family realized something was wrong and came and took her back to her hometown for a while. It took me years to stop having panic attacks when I thought I saw her in public.
This girl asked me to be a part of her group for a science project back in 8th grade. But when I switched groups, she got weird. She started calling me about anything but the project. Hell, I forget how she even got my number. Anyhow, she'd make me listen to Charlie the Unicorn through the phone. Then she'd tell me she'd come to my house in the middle of winter and drag me back to hers just for this stupid project I was no longer a part of. Her friends asked me at school if we were dating, and when I denied this, they were like, "Oh, because she's telling everyone you're her boyfriend." I asked my sister and her boyfriend at the time about what I could do to get rid of her, but they thought it was cute and weren't of much help. The phone calls got darker as she began to tell me about the abusive homes of her friends, and that she locks herself in her room at night to prevent slitting her wrists. She'd giggle and laugh about all this too, which made it worse. Eventually, someone overheard a conversation about her, and the school counselor sent her to therapy. She'd still call me and tell me about how uncool it was and laugh. The calls eventually stopped coming in once summer rolled along. Fast forward to high school. She's gross looking and sleeping with whoever she can get with. Told 14-year-olds that it's okay to cheat on your boyfriend-girlfriend if you're bisexual. This got a girl moved to a different school, and then dated other 14-year-olds during junior year. She was a creepy mess,